Under further review is here. This is a little bit different today. We got Steve, Mike here, and we're doing a college football show. It's our first one. It's midway through the college football season as the college football playoff rankings are coming out. And there's a lot to talk about. There's been a lot that has happened during the season, a few curveballs, a few teams have really stepped up, and I'm excited about this. Before we get into it, though, I got to throw out my kicker here. Follow us on Instagram. It's under further review pod. And we're also on YouTube. That's where we put all our episodes under further review. If you just search that on YouTube, you'll find us. And subscribe to it. Put the alerts on. We're going to have episodes every week, hopefully, for the college football side. We'll definitely be doing the NFL talk as well. And then as the season progresses, or when the season ends, I should say, we're also going to be doing draft talk, which that's Mike's forte right there. That's his favorite.
It's all I live for. It's all I live for.
That's what he lived for. And we're going to talk a little bit about the draft today. We'll talk about some of the prospects and how they've been doing this season. But Mike, I think we have to start with the college football playoff rankings just because it's so fresh. It's the first one that's came out this season. And I guess I'll get your initial thoughts first. I have a few thoughts. I was actually pretty pleased with it. I don't know if you were on the same page as me, but just looking at the top 12 teams that got in, like, what were your thoughts? Like, do you feel like some teams shouldn't have been in there? And how did you feel overall, I should say?
So I don't. To me, there wasn't any shock to it.
Ooh, sorry.
Someone's burning that food, man. To me, there was no shock necessarily. Virginia was kind of like a odd one, I guess, but it looks like they're gonna win. You know, they're in the front seat to make a run in the ACC. But to me, it was pretty much status quo. You're obviously pretty SEC heavy. You're probably, I think you're going to see this change quite a bit as the weeks go on. But I was the only one to me that stood out, and simply because they're winning their conference, is the Virginia. Virginia's the 11 seed. But outside of that, I think it was status quo. I think it's what we would have expected to see throughout the year.
Yeah, I agree with a lot of what you said. I hate to point out other podcasts, but you and I listen to the same shows, I feel like, and we listen to a lot of Todd McShay, and my dog's going crazy about that fire alarm. I apologize. But what he said about last year's college football committee compared to this year's is last year's would have looked at Georgia Tech, and they have one loss right now, and they would have been like, all right, based on their record that they're sitting 8-1 this year, they should be in the college football playoff. But instead, this season, they're number 17 when the initial rankings came out. And they're going to have a tough road getting back into that picture, that 12 seed picture, just because the ACC isn't what the other conferences are. As for the 12 teams, I think they really based it on strength of schedule this season. The first two teams, Indiana and Ohio State, they've already played some. Actually, Ohio State, I should say, they probably based it off of the roster and how that offense has been.
100%.
That defense is one of the best we've seen in a while. I think Indiana, ever since they blew out Illinois, and a lot of people were high on Illinois just because of who their quarterback was entering the season, and they had some weapons on that side of the team. And the way that they stuck around in Big Ten competition last season, a lot of people were high on them. And the fact that Indiana just came out and just totally dominated them on both sides of the football. And then Indiana came in and beat Oregon, who I feel like a lot of people are high on Oregon this season. They deserve number 2. There were some rumblings over the weekend that when the initial rankings came out, some people believed that Indiana was going to be number 1, actually. And
I did feel that. I truthfully did feel like Indiana probably deserved it. But the beauty of it is we're going to see that head-to-head matchup.
Yeah, that's already been put on the sports book. Did you see that? Because I think until told otherwise, that's going to be what's happening in the Indianapolis. That's going to be the Big Ten championship game, is Iowa versus Ohio State. And
to be fair, I can't imagine that Indiana's going to be favored in that game. I don't see how that's possible. I didn't see the spread. Personally, I didn't see it yet. But I can't see how Indiana goes in that game favored over Ohio State.
No, that they shouldn't be. Just because, how Julian Sayin's been playing during his first season under center. The two receivers that they obviously have. The Ohio State's run game is a little weak this season, but they make up for it with their passing game. And I don't think Ohio State has emptied their whole arsenal yet. And Ryan Day was talking about that. I think today I saw a quote about it where he was like, we'll open up the playbook at the right times, he said, practically. But that's the scary part about Ohio State is they haven't even shown their full force yet.
No, they're just coasting throughout the season. Through one of I don't care. You could argue Big Ten versus SEC all day, and valid both ways. But those are the two power conferences, and Ohio State is cruising through the Big Ten like it's nothing.
I think you have
Scary.
I think the recognition this season is the SEC is probably overall better.
But it definitely better. But I still, I think if I asked you just right now who's the best team in the country, who would you put your money behind? I think we both would say Ohio State at this point. I mean, what they've done through conference play to this point, I mean, it's impressive with a freshman quarterback, no less. Ohio State's a scary team. If you told me they coast their way all the way through the championship, not even shocked. I probably agree with you. But that Indiana game is going to be interesting. I mean, you're going to see those are two dogs of a team. Indiana has been tested, has been pushed. Ohio State really hasn't had to be. But that game, I think, is going to be it's going to be fireworks, lightning, thunder, everything. I could see that game being the best game of the season.
Yeah, and the scary part is like the duel of Carnell Tate and Jeremiah Smith. It's like you can do what Notre Dame did in the championship game last season where they had a safety trail Jeremiah Smith. It's just going to leave Carnell Tate in single coverage, and he's going to probably beat that every single time. And I've been so impressed by Carnell Tate this season. I know we're not talking NFL prospects until later in this episode, but I think it might have been McShay. Maybe it was someone else, but they said that his speed was like really slow when he got to college, and he was like such a raw prospect when he got to college, and the leaps and bounds that he's made since entering the college level is just like incredible. The fact that he's being talked about as a top 10 pick at this point.
Yeah, I mean, what's wild is he's not even the best receiver on his team, and there's an argument to be made that he's the best receiver in the country that's draft eligible. Like, if you think about that for a minute, there's a guy like that on his own team, he's not the best receiver, but he's arguably the best receiver in the country that's going to be draft eligible. It's wild to think that. Like, think about that kind of firepower that they have on that offense. It's insanity.
Yeah, he's just a talent. There's been several highlight reel catches in the back of the end zone. It reminds me of like those Randy Moss catches where he like barely got 2 feet in and just caught like mossed people. That like the phrase moss came out, and he's been mossing people all season in the end zone. I've like that's a really nice luxury for a first year quarterback to say like I could just throw it up to my receivers and I'm pretty confident that they're going to come down with it. And that saying over 80% completion percentage
for the season,
incredible.
And it's not even like he's checking the ball down. He's throwing the ball he's making legitimate. Let's just call it what it is. If Sayin was draft eligible this year, you're looking at QB1.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I mean, he's making legitimate NFL plays all over the field as a redshirt freshman. And that's absolutely, like I said, that offense is, if we looked back in 10 years, would you be shocked to say that might be one of the most gifted offenses in college football history? I don't think either of us would be shocked by that. I mean,
but the scary part is like we're also going to be saying that might be one of the best defenses we've ever seen too. So like
absolutely,
the complete team that Ohio State has, it's like, as somebody who leaves their biases out there, Michigan fan right here, I haven't been this scared of that, quote unquote, the game in a while, because I think like Ryan Day has a lot to prove, because that championship run last season was not complete. I don't think, like, if you lose to Michigan and then you make the run in the playoff, like, you celebrated, obviously you're the champs, but you're still saying I lost the biggest rival game in college football to Michigan when we should have clobbered them. And then
you left food on the table.
He did. And it's just going to be, this is the opportunity right here. Like, they're going to be on the road. They're going to be in Ann Arbor. I think Michigan's going to be in a position, if all goes right, where if they beat Ohio State, they'll be in the college football playoff. So Ohio State can go into that game and be like, we ruined your hopes of any shot of making the college football playoff, because at 3 losses, you're not getting into that game, because you lost every single top 25 game that you've faced this season. Ohio State's the real deal. This might be one of the better teams. This reminds me of, I don't know if this is a wild take, but like those Miami teams in the early 2000s where you looked across the roster and you couldn't even find a weakness on those Miami teams.
Oh no, yeah, I mean, it's funny, hindsight at 2020, we look back on that team and the amount of NFL talent they had, even second and third string players. I very well think that that's probably what we're looking at here. I mean, and what's even crazier than that is, if you think about it, think of Miami, those guys weren't jumping ship back in the day because of NIL. Now Ryan Day's navigating that with an NIL climate. I mean, I think we've got to look. I know last year we killed Ryan Day saying he couldn't win the big game, and he finally did it. I think we probably have to start looking at Ryan Day as arguably the best college football coach right now, or a top two guy, top three. Whereas last year, it's crazy to think the conversation we were having. Last year, after that Michigan game, people were saying he needs to be fired, goes off and wins the national title. And now this year, anything less than calling them a juggernaut is doing a disservice. I think now we have to have that conversation. Is Ryan Day the guy in college football right now? Really hard to argue against it.
Yeah, the third base argument was last year, and you can't even say that anymore because he won a championship, and that was his roster that he won a championship with. It wasn't Urban Meyer's. But yeah, I mean, if you think across the board, like what's impressive about this season, and this is a development thing because Ohio State doesn't have guys that leave their program. Like the only guys that are leaving is Devin Brown, who's second string quarterback at California right now. But most guys, they know their best shot at the NFL is staying with Ryan Day and staying with Ohio State. And they had, what did they have? Like 15 guys get drafted last season. And it was like, all right, we're just going to come back and probably have just as many this season, which is so impressive because you talk about those second and third string guys. But I'll throw something even bigger towards your way. Ohio State might have the best assistant coach in the country too. Brian Hartline, what he does with that receiving core,
incredible.
He's now offensive coordinator, but he was the wide receivers coach. Just year in and year out, Ohio State has the best receivers. And I'm telling you, it's not even ending with Jeremiah Smith and Carnell Tate because what they've been doing on the recruiting trails is just they're getting the top receivers every single year because those receivers are sitting there and they're like, if I want to make the NFL, the best shot I have is going to Ohio State and playing under Hartline.
Yep, wide receiver you. I am interested to see because I do think Hartline's getting a job this offseason. I think he's leaving.
Where would he go though? Like what's a favorite in your opinion?
Oh, you know what I'm going to say.
Penn State.
I think that story writes itself. I know he's an Ohio State guy. I know that he played, but I'm sorry, you're offered a job at Penn State, especially somebody like him who's an an up and coming coach, right? Like he has never had a head coaching job. It's really hard to say no. But from a Penn State standpoint, I think it's a slam. I do think it's a slam dunk hire because Hartline can recruit. He's proven that. I don't know if he'd be able to get receivers to jump ship. I know he has a relationship with them, but let's just say that he was able to poach a receiver or two from Ohio State. It changed the complexion. Penn State really doesn't have strong, through time, they haven't had strong receivers. I mean, they've had guys go in the first round, but it's nothing to brag home about like Ohio State. I mean, Ohio State every single year is turning out one or two guys in the first round as a receiver. I mean, I think Hartline, if you're trying to build an offense, which Penn State is trying to do, they've been trying to do for a long time, I think that he's a slam dunk hire. And not to mention that, just think about the story it writes for itself, right? Penn State goes in and gets Ohio State's guy. You know what I mean? Like it is a heated game. It's not a Michigan Ohio State game, but Michigan Penn State can be a heated game. That changes the complexion of that series, and I think it's compelling for the Big Ten. If you're writing a story, tell me something more compelling than those three teams.
Yeah, that I was really disappointed by the fact that Allaire got injured a few weeks ago because, like, I think regardless of like how Penn State was playing, because he played the UCLA game. Obviously, he lost against Oregon. But if you have him under center, I think there's still some hope that like maybe we get in as a 2-loss team. And, anything can happen with an NFL-ready quarterback. So the juice would have been there for that Ohio State-Penn State game. But the fact that they were playing their backup quarterback, and he hasn't been that great, honestly. Like, it just was a no contest. I'll give you a name that could go with Hartline if he does transfer. Quincy Porter from Bergen Catholic. Come on, it's closer to home. You get to stay with Hartline. I'm not trying to like put rumors out there or anything, but it just makes sense. Like the New Jersey to Penn State connection is real. But you're right. Like why would Ohio State guys follow their assistant coach, their offensive coordinator? Maybe he'll get like a backup running back or something that says like I'm not going to play at Ohio State because a freshman starting at running back this season. I think.
Yep. And to be fair, Quincy Porter was heavily recruited by Penn State. I'm not again, no rumor. We don't have any basis, no fact on this. Yeah. We're just talking as New Jersey guys. Quincy Porter was recruited by Penn State heavily. Actually, I think I might be mistaken, but I do believe they finished top 3 in the recruiting cycle for him. So, I mean, that definitely, guys do follow guys. I mean, we've seen it all over. Guys follow guys. And it would be compelling. Like I said, just think of the story writing itself like that. It would be so good for the Big Ten.
It absolutely would be. I mean, we'll see how it unfolds. It just makes a lot of sense for Hartline to go to Penn State. And I think Day will be all right if Hartline leaves. I know it's an identity. And like when you think of Ohio State, you think of Day and Hartline together. But the guy deserves a head coaching job for what he's done. But
Absolutely.
let's look at like some of the rest of like the top 12 teams. Like Texas A&M, I'm so happy that they're the 3 seed. I didn't know if the college football playoff committee, I didn't know if they had the balls to put them at the 3 seed. I really thought they were going to put Alabama there, maybe even put like an Ole Miss Georgia in front of them because of like who their head coaches are. But the fact that they did that, like that excited me. Marcel Reed is a guy. I
He's
watched
a dog.
that Notre Dame game, the game-winning touchdown pass that he made. I'm telling you, 95% of the quarterbacks in Division One football probably are not taking a chance like that. It was single coverage, but that Notre Dame, I don't think that Notre Dame corner could have played better coverage on the receiver that came down with it. I don't know who came down with it, but he put it only where his guy could catch it. It was such a nice pass, and to have that type of confidence is huge. And he basically was the reason that Kelly got fired. You know,
He put a nail in his coffin, that's for sure.
it was after that LSU Texas A&M game. It was close during the first half, but then Texas A&M just ran away with it. That was the last game that Brian Kelly got to see. So, Marcel Reed's great. Just looking through the top 12, like it all makes sense. I'm happy Notre Dame got in because they played close with a first time starting quarterback during those first 2 weeks. And I would love to see Carr in the college football playoff, because I think he could jump up some boards next season, possibly. But
yeah, the only thing with Notre Dame with that pick, they're the only 2-loss team in it. I do think that my thing is with, in terms of, if you want to talk about interchangeable teams seeing things change, I do think that when the season comes and ends and we're talking about, we're legitimately talking about our last ranking, it's going to be very hard if Texas wins out and Oklahoma win out. It's going to be very hard to keep one of those teams out. And I feel like if you were going to remove a team and they all have 2 losses, Notre Dame's the odd team out. You know what I mean? And that's just my feeling. It could be, you might feel differently. While I am happy, I do like that I see them in there. Yeah. To me, when it comes to remove a team, that's logically the only team you're going to be able to pull.
Would you feel okay with 5 SEC teams in the playoff?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it would be very hard to make an argument that they're not deserving. Like if right now, if you stacked it, and right now we end the season, and you're looking at about 3 2-loss teams. It's going to be very, very hard to keep Oklahoma and Texas out over Notre Dame. And actually, I'll throw another one in there, in terms of keeping somebody out. What if Vanderbilt finishes with only a 2-loss, as a 2-loss team? It's going to be very hard to keep another SEC team out. But again, we got weeks left. Teams lose.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, there's a lot of college football to be played. I do think at some point the college football committee will say we don't want 6 SEC teams in there because it's not the college football playoff field. But man, like I'm like really rooting for Notre Dame to get in because I want to see Jeremiah Love get there he's a junior, but he's probably leaving after the season. Just based off of like what he's done since that Texas A&M game. Even the Texas A&M game, he 94 rushing yards, a touchdown. Since then, Purdue 157 yards, 2 touchdowns. Then he had 2 touchdowns against Arkansas when Carr went off during that game. Boise State, he had 103 rushing yards, a touchdown, 86 rushing yards against NC State, and 2 touchdowns. USC, 228 rushing yards and a touchdown, and then 136 yards and 2 TDs against Boston College. The only thing that makes me hesitant about Notre Dame is they didn't look great against Boston College at all, and that is not a good Boston College team this year. But I guess every team's allowed to have that one like off week. I wouldn't call like the Miami game, the Texas A&M game, I wouldn't call those off weeks because those are 2 top 25 teams.
Yeah.
I mean, the Miami game, I think if Notre Dame played them at this point in the season, they're probably beating Miami. Miami always does this thing where they start off the season hot and then they start to fall off as the season goes on.
Listen, with Miami, all you got to do is keep the game close in the 4th, and Carson Beck will do the work for you.
Yeah, Beck, man, he's looked atrocious.
Just another guy that we could just talk about. Last year, early in the year, was being mocked as a 1st overall pick. fell from grace, obviously, transferred, went to Miami to revive his brand. I don't think he's done anything to push his needle forward. I'm being honest.
No.
Like, he's definitely a draftable guy. I could see him being I think the highest I could see him go would be maybe a third, fourth round pick. But man, he did nothing to help his brand. He stacked more good college film, I guess, in terms of like as a college player, but I don't see the transition to the NFL that people were hoping for, early last year.
And also in Athens, Georgia, I think they're ecstatic that Beck went to Miami because while Gunnar Stockton probably isn't the more talented player between the two, I just think the heart and like the hard-nosed playing that he does every single week, like you'd rather have that under center than probably Carson Beck, who chokes in the fourth quarter of big
Yeah.
games.
Gunnar Stockton just fits that Georgia brand. Like I think I said this to you last year, and not to go back to it, but where I was like, if you were gonna design a quarterback, name everything. Gunnar Stockton is what you would design as a Georgia quarterback. Like he does what he does. Like I said, he's not the most physically gifted. He's not the best, the most athletic guy on the field. Like it's just he's just a football player, and he does the little things. I'm not even sure he has an NFL future. But you know what? If you told me he rattles off a couple national championships here on his own, not gonna be shocked. Like I'm really not.
Yeah, he will probably go down as like a very good college football player, but like
Mhm.
somebody who maybe makes the NFL practice squad or something.
Yeah, I
But
think he could end up like Jake Fromm,
yeah,
where Jake Fromm bounced around from NFL rosters for. I think he might even be on a roster now. Who knows? But he'll get his cup of coffee. He'll get to hang around. But he doesn't have like those tangible traits. But for a college football player, a college quarterback, he's. I think I don't know what else you'd want more. He doesn't turn the ball over, doesn't make mistakes, and does the little things. And I think this Georgia football team this year is a throwback. They're going to beat you, but with defense and hard nosed play, and they're going to grind you out. And I still like that in college football. Grinders. Where you got big offensive line just beating you down, defensive line's getting after you. Like that's exciting to me. I think it's cool. So
yeah. And to say something about like Kirby Smart, for the longest time, I was like, oh, he just has really talented rosters. That's why he's winning. But at this point, like, I really have to say, like, Kirby Smart's probably just a really good head coach. Like, he gets the most out of those type of
yes,
quarterbacks. Like Gunnar Stockton probably has no business, having this Georgia team as the number 5 team in the country. But at this point, like, he's put together the perfect offense for Gunnar Stockton. And Kirby Smart just finds ways to win because they've been in so many close battles this season. But also, like year in and year out, that those defenses are just amazing that Kirby Smart puts together. And like, I don't want to face Georgia in the playoff. Like, I don't know if you feel the same way, but like, just
no,
the experience of
no,
Kirby Smart,
absolutely
he's
not.
been there before. The experience of some of the players on that roster, and the fact that they've been in so many close contests this year, like that is not an easy game, especially if you have to go to Athens, Georgia, which, early on, some of the teams will have to do if they remain the 5 or 4 seed.
Yeah, I'll be honest with you. I don't care what team you are. You don't want to go through Alabama. You don't want to go through Georgia. You
No.
don't want to go to Ohio State. Those teams are they're like I said, there's those staff. Well, you know, DeBoer I think probably leaves a lot on the table as a experienced staff, but that Washington team and what he did with them, I
Yeah.
mean, he's got experience. Regardless of what we could say, I know last year a lot of people were out on DeBoer and stuff like that, but this year I do think he's had a nice rebound.
Hmm.
I think this team kind of reminds me of that Washington team, only SEC style football play, right? Like they're they could run the ball, they could pass the ball. Yeah, I don't want to go through any of those teams that have that continuous experience. If I'm like a BYU, Texas Tech, I'll throw in Virginia, even though I don't think they're going to get in because they're going to lose somehow. I don't want to go through. You're going to be honest. You're not going to enjoy that experience. I think BYU is a little bit of one of those. Just to talk about them for a second, I don't believe in them. I think they play a soft schedule, and I just don't believe in them. I think that what we'll find out, it'll be reminiscent of when was it Washington played Georgia? What was the final score of that game? It was disgusting.
This, not this season, right?
No, 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 no.
When they made the championship game.
Or an easier when Georgia played. We'll go with when Georgia played TCU in the championship game in the finals in the third quarter was like 55-0.
Yeah.
Like I don't have any faith. Like I don't think BYU is I don't think they're 8-0,
Yeah.
but who have they beaten? And I don't want people to say, oh, the Big 12. No, I don't want to hear it.
I'll throw another team. I don't think Oregon is what they were last season. I know you're personally high on Dante Moore. I think he needs to show me a little more, especially after that Penn State game. He's kind of come down to earth, in my opinion. but they're very young. They're very young, and it showed during the Indiana game. And I don't know if they have the makings to be like that team that can compete with like an Ohio State, Indiana, Texas A&M, Alabama, the top 5 teams, maybe even top 6. But I mean, I feel okay facing like Ole Miss. I feel great facing BYU, Texas Tech. I wouldn't want to I don't think Notre Dame will get a home game, but I wouldn't want to face Notre Dame at home. Just
No, again, playoff experience, right? Like that team is, they have it. And actually, to go a step further, I mean, if Notre Dame does sneak into the playoffs, and we saw what they did last year in the playoff with Riley Leonard, Carr is a much more. I know he's young, but Riley Leonard versus Carr, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
what they can do this year, like they've got, a lot of last year with Riley Leonard in the playoffs was a lot of scrambles, right? If you remember, he did have big throws, but a lot of it was the scrambles that he broke off to keep and extend drives.
yeah.
That's not what's going to happen here. Carr's going to throw. I mean, the dude can pass. He is a gamer. You know what I mean? And he's a gunslinger at that. Like, he's going to take chances that Leonard didn't. I actually think that this Notre Dame team could be better than last year's team that went to the championship, even with the 2 losses. But it's all going to come down to what the committee thinks, right? And I think you could be right. I think they could get that SEC fatigue. I just think if you stack resumes, it's going to be hard to explain that one. But if they do get in, Notre Dame's 100% a team, doesn't matter what seed they are. They could beat anybody on any given day. They can. I mean, that's just the reality of the situation. They're experienced, and they're a good team. They're a good football team.
Yeah, and I'll take you even one further. So Iowa football, they face Oregon this week, I should say. They face USC following that week, Michigan State, Nebraska. I'll give you a scenario. Say Michigan does beat Ohio State that last week.
It's certainly possible. I'm not ruling it out, just so you know. It's possible.
No, because everybody counted Michigan out last season, too. And
records mean nothing. When you get into a heated game, records mean nothing.
Yeah. On3 said, I think it's like Andy Staples and Ari Wasserman, is it? Who's the On3?
Yeah, I do believe so. Yeah, I think it's Wasserman, yep.
They said if Michigan wins Ohio State, they should absolutely be in the college football playoff. Say Iowa beats USC and Oregon. All right, so this scenario gets a little rough because Oregon probably drops out of the top 12 if they lose to Iowa. But
probably.
But at that point, like, you're looking at Ohio State definitely has to be in. Maybe they won't be the 1 seed anymore. Maybe Indiana will be. It actually derails a lot of people's hopes because if Michigan does win out, they're in the Big Ten championship game against Indiana. Ohio State is no longer in that Big Ten championship game, I believe. So Ohio State drops back a little bit. They'll still be in the college football playoff. So you have Ohio State, Indiana, Michigan, and Iowa looking at the college football playoff. But then, Alabama's still in it, Texas A&M, Georgia, Texas, and Oklahoma are still in it. Are you really about to have 9 out of the 12 teams be Big Ten and SEC football teams?
It'd be really hard not to. I'm just, so let's continue with that conversation, right? Like, who are you removing and who are you adding? Like, just being honest, like, so teams that are not SEC or Big Ten that could potentially make it, right? You got Utah. I don't think that moves the needle for either of us, just being completely honest. You got Louisville, who would end up essentially having to win their ACC championship game, which not impossible. But you're not putting 2 ACC teams in, right? That we could agree there.
Vanderbilt,
this year.
That's a 6th SEC team.
Correct. No, so that's what I'm saying. You're really starting to reach now because really the ACC is going to work itself out because someone's going to lose the conference championship game, right? It's Virginia, if they continue to win out, is going to be in it. And I think it would be Louisville if they went out because Virginia does have the win over Georgia Tech. One of them's going to work themselves out. You're not putting a 2-loss ACC team in. There's no way I could see that being a thing. Maybe Georgia. I'll entertain the argument if you want to put Georgia Tech in. Let's put it that way.
Have you seen a bigger loss in the last few years than what Georgia Tech experienced this past weekend?
No, because honestly, I think that a lot of people felt, they're a dog of a team. Me and you have talked about it before. I don't care who you are. I don't care what conference you play in. That team shows up to play. Yeah. Usually.
It was disappointing because I really wanted to see Haynes King in a college football playoff setting. But now
I would agree.
We're not
and that offense.
Yeah.
I find that offense so it's like such a throwback. And it's all those guys are rugged football players. They take hits, they dish out hit. Like, they're a fun offense to watch if you love traditional football, right? I don't want to rule out that they're not in it. Like I said, now looking at it, I'm pretty sure that the way it's going to work for the championship game is it probably ends up Virginia Louisville in the championship game. But Georgia Tech, if they win out, they're only sitting there with 1 loss, and they got in this metaphorical, let's say they've got Vanderbilt, Utah, Oklahoma, and Texas ahead of them. I could probably make an argument to put them in. Essentially, you'd have to remove Notre Dame. You'd put them in over to Notre Dame. I probably wouldn't argue that with you right now. You could see it. Like I guess the only team I could see getting added would be a second ACC team. There's always going to be Big Ten SEC bias. I don't see how you avoid all the SEC and Big Ten teams. This year specifically, the only team I could see making it would be a second ACC team. Utah is nothing special. You're not going to put two Big 12 teams in. I'm sorry. You're just not going to do that.
No, absolutely not. Yeah, I think this past weekend played Georgia Tech out of the playoff just because. So Virginia doesn't face Georgia Tech this season, or they haven't faced them yet this year, right? So they don't face Georgia Tech the rest of the way at least. And if they go on and beat Louisville, then they're a lock to be in the playoff probably. But say Louisville does win that championship game, then they already have the head-to-head versus Georgia Tech. So like they're getting the nod. So like,
yeah. So I'm mistaken. I said Georgia Tech lost. I apologize. I said to Virginia. Yeah, Virginia's got a cake schedule the rest of the way.
yeah.
I don't see
Virginia Tech they play. I think. Who else?
They got Duke, Virginia Tech, and Wake Forest, and then obviously your championship. I don't see who could. Maybe Duke. I'll tell you right now, the only team I could see giving them a fit would be Duke, and I don't think it's gonna be a fit at all.
Also, there's some tricky scenarios too because who's to say like Washington doesn't win out? Like Washington beats Wisconsin, Purdue, UCLA most likely. And then if they get an upset over Oregon, like, are you considering Washington for the college football playoff?
I'd rather not.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to.
I mean, actually, I can make it. I'm gonna change the subject because we want Georgia Tech. I think we both like. I can make an argument if they win out and they find a way to beat Georgia that last week of the season. You can't keep them out.
Oh yeah, if they beat Georgia, then that's
because the NC State game, they did lose 48-36. I get that. But I don't see Boston College beating them. I don't see Pittsburgh beating them. It sets them up. They played, we know what happened last year with Georgia Tech. If they win that game, well, one, that changes the complexion of everything, doesn't it? It really does.
Yeah.
It changes everything. I think that you would not be able to keep Georgia Tech out of it.
Absolutely.
And also that probably changes your SEC lineup too, in the playoff, I would assume. You're not going to knock Georgia out of the SEC. They're not going to knock them out of the playoffs, but they're going to drop. Yeah. For sure. Yeah, easily they're going to drop.
I haven't looked at too many schedules, so I don't know how it shakes out. I'm sure some of these SEC schools are going to play each other at some point the rest of the way. So teams are going to knock each other out of this playoff. Like what we see right now is not what the college football playoff is going to be. That's for sure.
Yeah, Georgia just has to get through Texas and Georgia Tech. But Texas is no joke. Arch Manning, looked a lot better last week.
Well, that's a case right there. Like if Texas loses to Georgia, they're probably done.
Yeah, I mean, right there, that knocks them out. Or if Texas finds a way to beat Georgia, what conversation are we having then? You know what I mean? I don't think it's a foregone conclusion that Georgia beats Georgia Tech. Like a lot of people will say it is, but we've seen that's not true. Yeah. I don't know. I think that it's right now we can only talk about, instead of talking about hypotheticals, we probably just got to look at what it is. Yeah. It's a fair ranking. The college football playoff ranking, I think, was very fair for what it is now.
Yeah.
It's going to change though.
Like based off like Arch Manning's play the past 2 weeks, I think that's why they're leaning top 12 team for Texas.
Yeah.
I didn't know Texas was going to jump up that much, but
it was a huge jump.
You can't knock like their schedule. They have had a tough schedule. And like one of their losses is against Ohio State. What was their second one? I'm trying to think. I'm drawing a blank, but I know it was against a good team, their second loss. Mm-hmm. So
tell you right now,
strength of schedule, just playing in the SEC and having a non-conference game against Ohio State, like that's gonna, leapfrog some other teams.
So they lost to Florida, so no, that wasn't a good loss.
Yeah, Florida with like one of the best defenses in the country.
Yeah, just poor coaching, and poor quarterback play.
Their quarterback had 5 interceptions in a game, which is really bad. I know there was a few topics we wanted to talk about. Let's move on real quick.
Yeah, sure.
If it's okay, I texted you before. I want to talk about Dabo Swinney just because, like, what happened this past weekend. So the downfall's been happening all season, and he was kind of advocating for his job in the beginning of the year.
My man thinks he's getting fired every week.
He does. And I think the pressure's starting to get to him. And the reason I wanted to talk about it is because I think Dabo needs a fresh start. I just think that the stress is getting to him. I think he's not coaching to his highest capabilities here. I mean, he still has, like, Cade Klubnik's played the entire season and they have this record. It should never be the case. He has Williams. Is it Antonio Williams, right? Who a lot of people predicted to be a first-round wide receiver before the season started.
He has not looked the same since he got back.
No, that
Has
injury
not.
may have hurt him a lot. But what, he missed like the first 2-3 weeks of the season?
Yeah, I think it was 3. Came back week 4.
Yeah.
That was the Troy game, which they went down big early.
Yeah,
We were texting, but they did come back and win that. I'm looking here. I mean, you know what the unfortunate part about it is that their games that they've lost. I mean, they've got. I'll count them up here. You got 1, 2, 3.
Were they 3 and 4?
So they're 3 and 4, but you've got 4 or 3. One possession losses. I mean, So Dabo's definitely been outcoached. I don't want to make an excuse for him by any means. He's definitely been outcoached. This is also probably one of the poorer Clemson rosters that he's had. But yeah, it's just tough because a lot of it comes down to tough breaks, right? Now, some of them are bad losses. For Clemson, a loss to Duke is huge. Like, that's a bad loss. I'm not going to, this year, losing to SMU, not a great look. But SMU has been a better team since joining the ACC. Georgia Tech loss, not going to take anything away from them there. Georgia Tech, as we just spoke about, I think we can agree one of the best teams in the country, even with the loss. The Clemson-Troy game was not a good look for him. He did pull it out in the end. They got some separation. But early on in that game, I think they went down at 17-0 in that game.
They did.
It wasn't a great look. Like that, you can't have that happen. And then the LSU game...
Though, that was a hangover.
It was from the LSU game. That LSU game was a very tough, brutal game.
Yeah.
It was very close. It was back and forth. LSU pulled it out in the fourth. So it's hard for me to critique him and say that he's not. He's had some tough losses. I do think that a fresh start's probably needed for both clean separation. But I don't want to discredit what he has done at Clemson. You know what I mean? Like, what he has done at Clemson has been pretty incredible. He's got 2 national titles there. He's turned them into. He did have them as a perennial powerhouse this year. Obviously, things have not taken the turn that he would have wanted. He was a perennial playoff contender in what is deemed a weak conference. Like, I mean, what he's done there has been pretty incredible. But I do agree that I think now is probably a good point for them to have a mutual break. He's definitely going to take a job somewhere. And I don't know necessarily it'll be a step back. I could see him taking a job in the SEC. I'm going to throw one out there. Maybe he interviews at a place like Florida. We can go over to the Big Ten. I don't think he interviews at Penn State, but there'll be Big Ten openings that he definitely could take a look. You know what I mean? I think that he probably takes a step back, but he's still going to be a power conference coach. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, it's tough. I can't imagine what he's going through. I can't imagine what his players are going through with every week. He in his interview last week where he said he was in the tunnel and he thought he was getting fired, and then he had to go out and do a post game, press conference. That's tough.
Ripping apart the refs, like the stress is getting to him.
Yeah, he's not doing himself any favors by any means.
No. And you're correct. I think Dabo will take a step back, whatever coaching position he takes next, because I can't really see him in like a Penn State running. I can't see him in, who else? Florida. I can't really see him in Auburn. Some of these big positions that are open. I really think, like, if Franklin's name wasn't so glued to Virginia Tech, I'd be like, all right, Virginia Tech, maybe, stay in the conference. That's a good position for him. They sell out probably every game almost, and they have like one of the coolest atmospheres in college football. But like thinking back to like what Clemson was before he got there. So in the 80s, Clemson was this like storied program that they were awesome. And then fast forward to when Dabo took over, like Clemson was not the team that they are now. And you could say it was like, his ability to recruit. Like, he obviously brought in great quarterbacks, Trevor Lawrence. Who were some of the quarterbacks before Trevor Lawrence? I'm drawing blanks on their names.
I mean, the big one was Deshaun Watson.
Yeah, Watson.
That was a big one. I think he was Taj Boyd his first year there. I think was Taj Boyd his first year. I mean, if you think about it, he really hasn't had. I mean, he starts his quarterback so young. I mean, Taj Boyd, I'm pretty sure was the previous regime, but he came in, took him over, got him drafted. Let's not forget, he was a 6th round pick by the Jets.
Who was Bryant? Bryant was one of his quarterbacks, right?
So he lost out. Yes, he was in between Watson and Lawrence, but then Lawrence, took the job from him, and that's when he converted to tight end. And then, you have Trevor Lawrence for 4 years, and then he went right into Cade Klubnik, and again, Klubnik started as a freshman. So I mean, his resume of coaching of quarterbacks is pretty good. I mean, there was a point there where and I admit it, I was a big Klubnik guy up until probably 2 or 3 weeks ago. I still think he has an NFL future. He's just not going to be a first. I was talking him potentially being a first overall pick.
No.
I don't see that at this point. I will admit that I will make excuses for it. Like I don't think they have the best receiver room at this point. I don't think he's protected enough. I do think that the coaching has been subpar for him,
Yeah.
but I mean, he still hasn't done anything to help himself either. But the guy's a gamer. I mean, I'm gonna tell you that right now. You're not gonna take that away from him. He's a gamer.
Is there a world? Sorry to jump in there, but is there a world where you see Dabo just being like enough with his head coaching for a few years, like do like a Chip Kelly type thing, where like say Hartline does go to Penn State, maybe like he goes and becomes an Ohio State offensive coordinator or something, or do you think his ego is too much?
He's got national titles that he's won on his own. I
Yeah.
couldn't remind me you could remind me if I'm mistaken. I don't remember a coach ever taking a step back, having not one. He's got multiple national titles. I don't think he does that. I think that he jumps right back into the coach ranks right away. Someone's going to give him a job. I mean, like I said, you're going to have Big Ten openings. You're going to have, the Big Ten's kind of a weird conference, maybe not there, but you will have other ACC openings. You're going to have SEC openings. I think that's probably the extent of how far down he goes. I don't see him taking a job like, in the MAC. He hasn't fallen that far, but I still think he gets we'll put it in air quotes. I think he gets a big job at a Power 5 school. And if you told me in 4 years he's back to where he was with a fresh start, I probably would believe you. I probably wouldn't be shocked. But if you also told me this is one of those things where he's just holding on for too long and his time came and gone and NIL's caught up to him, because I think a lot of that is probably part of this is the NIL, I also wouldn't be shocked there. I think he's a weird case, but no, I think he's relatively young. I don't see him just walking away or jumping on someone else's staff, especially as a could you imagine him, let's just say, going to Ohio State, and let's just say Ryan Day doesn't win a title this year, but he's got a coach on his roster that has coached 2 national titles. It's kind of an awkward situation. I don't see that, no.
There might be some clashes there. Chip Kelly was a little different because he was kind of done with the NIL, and he was at UCLA. It was becoming apparently tougher to recruit at UCLA, keeping those California kids in state. But I mean, like I know we weren't going to talk coaching, and we won't talk coaching, but like LSU, Florida, Penn State, like Dabo's not going to those schools.
No, I don't think so. I think they're too high profile for him right now. I think he needs to. I agree. He needs to take a step back. I don't think he needs to leave a Power 5 like he's not taking a job outside of a Power 5 conference. No. But I think, and I also still think the job has to be in the South. I don't see him being able to have the impact he does in, let's just say, let's just say Rutgers. Like that's not going to work. That's not how it works. So it's got to be somewhere. We got to see what the openings are, I guess.
Well, I have the list here. Like Auburn, most likely not going there. But like, how about like you talk about the South, like Arkansas or something, or
could be I think that would be a fair something like that, a little slower pace. Yeah. Are we sure that South Carolina is not going to be open?
It might be, but like if South Carolina does open, who's to say their head coach doesn't go to Virginia Tech because of the family ties?
So that's why I was kind of getting at it. If that Virginia Tech job, I'm sorry, they're going to make that call to Beamer. They have to, right? I mean, they have to make that phone call.
Keep it in the family. That's where
I think that, and I do think that, I do believe, I watched that show on Netflix, and he brought up that that was his dad's, path. And he didn't want to walk that path again.
Yeah.
But I got to be honest with you, there's got to be a part of him inside that if he can go and revive that program like his dad did, that's got to be special.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. It seems like this James Franklin talk to Virginia Tech is heavy.
Yeah.
Almost people are writing it off as almost a done deal. So, but I agree. But I mean, South Carolina's disappointed big time this year. I think it'd be a very easy move for Dabo just across the state.
Yeah.
It'd still be the same recruits. He probably could transfer a lot of the guys that, a lot of them would probably follow him. I think that could be a logical thing if there's an opening there. Again, we have no sources that say this. We're just making it up. But I think that's a logical switch, right? You could see him at South Carolina.
If he went to South Carolina day one, the biggest thing he could do as a head coach while being at South Carolina is trying to keep Sellers there. Because, like, we've talked about this, like, if Beamer does stay at South Carolina, like, Sellers probably should transfer because he hasn't progressed at South Carolina. And if we know what he's capable of, he brings the intangibles of being a running quarterback, being a passing quarterback. He has a strong arm. He's muscular. He's a big dude. He's hard to bring down. But South Carolina has a terrible offensive line this season.
He's also shown next to nothing as a passer.
Yeah, absolutely. And do we think he can get there? Yeah, I think that's why he's still in some people's mock drafts a top 10 player, but it's all based on like ceiling. That's like Anthony Richardson talk right there.
I was about to say he's very much right now in the Anthony Richardson territory. Actually, to be fair, Anthony Richardson, if you stack them against each other their last years of college, like let's just say Sellers does come out this year.
Yeah.
Anthony Richardson was by far the better prospect right now. Sellers, he's regressed big time. And I'm sorry, over the next 3 games, he might be flashy. You know, he could throw 4 touchdown passes, no interceptions the next 3 games. He hasn't. He's got to. I would argue he's in the Arch Manning territory. He's got to transfer somewhere that could develop him, or you bring Dabo in, who has the ability to develop quarterbacks. Maybe you get a good year out of, or you could probably get 2 years out of him because I think Sellers is a redshirt sophomore, right? So, you'd probably argue you can get 2 years out of him that way. I don't know. That's a really tough one. And then, but I could also see somebody transferring in there and taking his job too at this point. In terms of, not to change the subject from coaching, but I know that a lot of South Carolina people are connecting the Keelan Russell after that post-game interaction. You know, I could see him walking in there and taking the job from Sellers after the way he's played.
I was listening to, I don't remember what the podcast was, but they knew the Manning family extremely well, and they specifically knew Arch Manning's father, who was the third Manning brother. I can't remember his name. Cooper. He knew Cooper very well. So at this point, the way Arch Manning's playing, and if he continues playing the way that he is, like, he's going to stay at Texas, obviously. But they were saying, like, just knowing the Manning family and how they are, and like if Arch ever even like entertained the idea of like, hey, like I'm done with Texas, I want to move on, they'd probably be like, hey, you made your commitment to Texas because that's who the Mannings are. I don't know if he would have ever left, Mike. I just think the Mannings like mindset is like, we would like to see a project all the way through. That's why like Eli stayed with the Giants. You can't really make the case for Peyton, but I think the Colts were kind of done with Peyton and they were ready to take Andrew Luck and start something new. But like the Manning family is very much someone.
To be fair, they didn't release Manning until they knew they had the first overall pick.
Yeah.
And Luck was considered and was considered generational, just like Manning was. And to be fair, he was. The Colts completely did a disservice, but that's a conversation for another podcast.
That was once again offensive line, which we're talking about with Sellers. But let's close out with what we wanted to talk about. I'm only going to pick one position this week. We'll do wide receivers, just because quarterbacks have been so heavily talked about. Real quick, though, just because like time is pretty high on this one. Give me your top 4 or 5 wide receivers going into the draft next year so far.
All right, so I'm going to project the way I think that it's going to end rather than what it currently is. I do think that Carnell Tate jumps over Jordan Tyson.
Yeah,
I do.
I agree.
The way that Carnell Tate's playing right now, the pedigree from where he comes from, I think it's going to be very hard for Tyson to pull that off. Tyson's going to be no slouch. He reminds me a lot of, in terms of his ascension, we'll say, reminds me a lot of Tet McMillan. I think he's going to have that, he'll step in somewhere day one. I think he's still going to be a top 15 pick.
Yeah.
I just think that Carnell Tate right now to me is the guy. And if you want me to project, and I've told you this in the past, when it comes time for the draft, depending on where the Giants are sitting, it would pairing Neighbors with somebody like Carnell Tate or even Jordan Tyson, but let's use Carnell Tate for this example, that offense becomes explosive. Now you're talking about Jackson Dart all over the field. I think that Carnell Tate...
Let me jump in there. Sorry. Carnell Tate is kind of familiar with being that number 2 target, too.
Absolutely is.
And if he goes with Neighbors, like, he's going to take the back seat to Neighbors. Like, Neighbors is the guy of the future for the Giants. So the fact that Tate's, like, okay with, like, working with another receiver... I don't know if I can say the same thing about Jordan Tyson because he's been the guy at Arizona State. The only thing that I would say about Tyson, you put him on that Giants offense. Now he's with Scadaboo, his college teammate, and maybe the vibes are high through that.
Also, 2 completely different wide receivers as well. Yeah. That's the other thing is if you're looking at an NFL team, and we're using the Giants here because we're both New York fans. I'm a Jets fan. He's a Giants fan. Steve's a Giants fan. 2 different receivers, right? Like, what are they looking to do? Do they have a new coach? Is he looking for somebody to take the top off the defense? Is he looking for somebody to do the dirty work underneath? He's looking for somebody that's going to go up in the end zone and catch a ball. You got to weigh those opportunities. And I think that's where you kind of like, I could tell you right now, I think Carnell Tate's going to be the best receiver from this class. Does not mean he'll be the first receiver taken. And I know that'll probably blow a lot of people's minds, but where are you fitting him, what offense you fitting into? Carnell Tate's going to do a lot of like what Egbuka does for the Bucks.
In terms, you stole the words right out of my mouth. In terms of Ohio State receivers, we're not talking Garrett Wilson. We're not talking Chris Olave. We're not talking Jackson Smith, Najigba. We're talking Egbuka, because Egbuka going into last season, like if Egbuka left before last season when the Ohio State won the championship, Egbuka's probably a day 3 receiver. But the fact that he stayed around, he really showed up during that playoff. Like he just looked lights out during that playoff. He flipped all the way up, and I'm sure his like whatever he did during like his pro day and stuff like that helped.
But also keep in mind he had Jeremiah Smith opposite him, right?
Yeah.
So he had to do all the dirty work in the middle. He had to do all the dirty work outside the numbers. And if you look at it, when he went to the Bucks, he's still doing exactly what he did at Ohio State. It was an easy transition. There was no change. And you know, we've spoken to the beats for the Bucks. We had an interview. You can go check it out. We said, and I said it that day, that Egbuka was the number 1 receiver in that last year's draft, and I still feel that way. I think he's going to have a better career than Tet.
Yeah.
But Carnell Tate, if you told me right now that, let's just say the Giants are picking at 5 and they draft Carnell Tate, and year 1 he goes out and catches 85 balls, not shocked. 100%. I think he's 100 catch receiver every day, because he's going to do the little things. He's going to do the dirty work underneath. That's the kind of guy he is. But again, I'll go to my second receiver, Jordan Tyson. I could also see him with the Giants.
Yeah.
A guy that he does something a little bit different than Neighbors does. You know, he's a guy that, you know, he's I think he's 6'2", he's probably 210. He's the kind of guy that he's going to go out and he's going to catch a ball downfield. He's going to out jump somebody. Like, that's the kind of player he is. He's a red zone target. I could see him fitting. It's a good year to be a Giant fan if you got a high pick.
Yeah.
I'm going to leave it at that. So I would put Carnell Tate 1, Jordan Tyson 2.
Yeah.
I know that there's a lot. If anybody listens to Todd McShay podcast, I do every Thursday. They're big on Mekhi Lemon, probably a little bit too big. I do think he's the 3rd receiver in this class. I think what he's doing, I think he can win the Blitnikoff this year. Statistically, I think he's probably one of the better. Statistics wise, I think he might be leading the NCAA in a lot of categories. But
can I jump in there?
You absolutely can.
So I know you were in your train of thought and you're cooking right now, but watching him during that Michigan game, so I didn't know how scared I had to be of Lemon heading in. Everybody kept talking about him. He showed up during the Illinois game, which I think people are saying Illinois has a decent defense this year. So like the fact that he did that was like a big thing. But I was like, all right, Lemon like was decent last season. We didn't really know what he was going to do this year, and then he's just going off. What he did in that Michigan game, like the coverages that Michigan gave Lemon, and he still came down with the catches. The touchdown that he had, where like it was just an unbelievable catch. The sideline catch he had against Michigan. I became a believer of Lemon. He's a smaller guy, but
he's very small.
I think we're learning like that. That's not going to impact you in the NFL. Like,
yeah, you know what? I'm starting to realize size in general in the NFL doesn't mean much anymore. You know, I'm sure we'd prefer to have 6'4" wide receivers and things like that. Quarterbacks that are 6'5", 240. Like, yeah, okay. But these little guys, these 5'11" guys, Garrett Wilson, JSN, Neighbors. I can go down this list forever. I don't think Justin Jefferson's particularly very big. Egbuka, what is he, 5'10"? Or they might be 5'11". I don't know. But like, it doesn't matter. It's how you get open. Yeah. And the last 3, granted, Nebraska, Notre Dame games weren't great for him. Not many receptions. But what he did in the Michigan game, the Illinois game, the Michigan State game, those 3 games alone, how could you not? I mean, he diced those teams up.
The Nebraska game was mostly on the quarterback play, though.
Mayava played down, for sure. But I think I don't want to, go the McShay route on it necessarily and overplay what kind of player he is. But I'll tell you what, I could see him being a back of the first round guy. I think you're going to see a couple receivers. I think you see 4 receivers go in the first round.
Who's the 4th?
And right now I'd have to say it's Denzel Boston. We were talking about this earlier. He's a big-bodied receiver. He has the pedigree. I mean, he had a great year last year. We were talking about this earlier. He reminds us of Rome Odunze. I was not big on Rome Odunze coming out. I'll be the first to admit I might have been wrong. Last year I was right. Last year I was 100% right. This year, Rome Odunze, it's he's a good receiver. Denzel Boston reminds me a lot of him. I think that they have similar traits. Granted, Boston won't have the catches that Odunze had. When the year's said and done, that last year that Odunze had before he came out was huge. But I think he projects a lot like Odunze. I don't know if he's a number 1, but Denzel Boston could be a 2. Which, to be fair, I think I'd have to go back and look, which we could definitely do. I don't know if Odunze projected as a number 1 receiver in his draft profile. I'd have to look and see what was said about him. Which we could check out. I don't think he was ever projected to be what he is. I think a lot of people felt he'd be a strong 2 in the NFL at best. This is much different. Much different. I think Boston's probably a strong 2 at best. But I was wrong last time. Maybe I'm wrong again.
Can I throw some names out there?
You certainly can. My list does not have to be your list.
Well, I think I agree with the 4. I told you via text like what I thought of Boston. I got to what.
Yeah.
I know I'm throwing the Michigan games out there, but that's truly who I watch every Saturday is Michigan. And the Washington versus Michigan game, I wasn't blown away by Boston. I think he had trouble against single coverage. Granted, I think most of the game they had Jair Hill, who's also going to be drafted on him.
And to be fair, Boston's not fast. Like, he's not a fast receiver. He's a slow guy.
He is. And another probably smaller receiver, right? So you're not expecting him to out jump people. He probably is going to have to run a precise route in order to get open, in which he does.
I mean, he's a big dude. He's a big dude.
Oh, is he a big dude? Okay.
Well, yeah, he's like 6'4", 6'5", but he's. I'm telling you, you could watch. He's slow. He's slow, and there's. I'd like to say that's a detriment in the NFL, but it's not. I mean, I don't think Mike Evans is a burner.
No,
he's done pretty good.
He had drops in that Michigan game, is what I'm getting.
Oh, he definitely does. His hands are weak.
Yeah, which would worry me. But there's a few guys. I do like Boston though. He's played very well this year, and I think with a good pro day, he will be a first round player. But there's 4 names I'm going to throw your way because I'm curious about these names. So the 2 I'm curious about just because they've had a little bit of down years, and you can say it's because of injury or quarterback play or just the offense as a whole. But Harbor from South Carolina, because I know there was a lot of big people on him this heading into the season, and Antonio Williams from Clemson. But the 2 other names on a positive note that I really want to watch out for, and this is granted, I'm not even going to talk about Bernard, but Casey from Texas A&M, Casey Conception.
He was a projected first-round pick coming in. Like, a lot of people felt that he was going to be a first-round pick this year.
Yeah, so and he's been very good for Texas A&M this year.
And he to be realistic, just because I'll start with him because he's probably the biggest name of the group, and probably people know who he is because Texas A&M's 8-0. He very well could be receiver 5 this year. I mean, I don't see him falling out of the second round, just being completely honest.
Yeah.
NFL teams need receivers. He probably would have been my receiver 5 for this year. Yeah, he would have been my receiver 5. He does legitimately with a strong pro day and a strong finish to the year. Before we hopped on, we were talking about who could leapfrog Boston. He's probably and I think I said it to you, he's probably the only logical guy that could take that spot from Boston.
Can I throw one more name at you, though?
Yes.
Just because I don't think he was even in the top 15 entering the season because this school wasn't sure who was going to be the premier receiver. They had a very good quarterback. Elijah Surratt from Indiana. He's jumped up big time. Like, I'm hearing his.
It's amazing what happens when you have a quarterback that can get you the ball consistently. Exactly. I mean, nothing against Mike. I mean, Michael Penix is very good at Indiana, and I don't want to take it away. But Surratt and Mendoza, huge. And actually, I want to talk about that for a minute. Because when a quarterback gets drafted, and by all accounts, we think that Mendoza is going to come out and be the premier guy this year. I'm going to be honest with you. If I am, let's just say I'm in New Orleans, I'm a New York Jets. I'll throw the Cleveland Browns in there. Why not? Looking late, maybe, round 3, round 4, I could see somebody wanting to pair, kind of like what the Titans did with Ward and Restrepo, even though they don't play Restrepo. Like, I would probably look at that as a option. I think Surratt has an NFL future. I would love to see whoever drafts him to help bring in Mendoza, make him comfortable. I would love to see Surratt go with him. I don't know. He's currently, depending on where you look, he's like the 79th ranked prospect. I mean, you're looking at him. He could be legitimately a late second round pick. He could do that. I like him. And to go back to, just because we skipped over him, Nick Harbor, I don't even know if that guy's a wide receiver. The dude is the largest human I've ever seen catch a football. And he's fast. It's scary. He's like, I have to look it up, but I think he's like 6'6".
So he's DK Metcalf.
He's bigger. He's more like Darnell Washington from the Steelers.
I saw Metcalf's video pop up again where he chased down that interception. You remember that a few years ago?
That is probably one of my favorite videos, and it's angry. He's running angry. But I mean, just think about that. This dude is if you remember Darnell Washington from Georgia, like, I remember my favorite video of him is the pro day when they're pushing the sled, and I don't know who went before him, like Musgrave or somebody, and barely moves it. The guy picked the whole sled up, walked it, and then placed it down. But Nick Harbor, I just pulled it up, 6'5", 240 pounds. And I'm telling you that he's going to run a 4.4. Like, if he comes out this year, he will run a 4.4.
That's wild.
That is scary.
So he might get drafted early because of that stuff.
I don't know. I don't think that many people are projecting that he comes out, but to be fair, Sellers not playing well has severely affected him. I mean, he's got almost no receptions, no yards. He's got 4 touchdowns, but just the telling stat here is he's averaging 19.1 yards per reception.
Yeah.
Like that kind of says everything you need to hear there. But yeah, I think you're going to see a lot of this draft is, if you needed a wide receiver, this is the draft to need one. I think let's just talk your top 3 rounds. I think round 1, you probably get 4 guys go round 1. Maybe one sneaks in behind. Like I said, if Concepcion takes that step forward, I could see him stepping into round 1. And then round 2, you're going to have probably another 4 or 5 guys going round 2. And then obviously round 3, you're going to have a ton. But this is a very deep draft. And it's not even that you need to have guys in the top 3 rounds to feel like you got good. I mean, I'm going to throw it out there because I'm a fan, obviously. A guy like Ian Strong, who's, before KJ Duff took off for Rutgers, Ian Strong, we were talking about, was arguably the best receiver in the Big Ten statistically. Now, obviously, KJ Duff has kind of overtaken him.
Like there's realistic when he leaves for the draft, like he's going to be like middle rounds guy, right?
So they're saying KJ Duff right now, I'm pretty sure, is leading the Big Ten in a lot of statistics in receiving. I mean, he might be the best receiver in the Big Ten right now, statistically, maybe not physically. There's a real strong thought that KJ Duff is not at Rutgers next year. I mean, he's going to have 1,000 yards receiving. He's carrying the team. There's a strong possibility I could see Ian Strong transferring to a bigger school. He is a New York kid. I know that this is his home school. But I mean, this guy, KJ Duff, I mean, I'm starting to see a lot of people talking about next year being a 1st-round pick. And you can't teach his size. He wasn't a 3-star recruit. Rutgers was really the only team. I mean, I shouldn't say that. I think Tennessee was in on him, but it was always Rutgers from the beginning.
Well, that's like like that linebacker who went to Miami from Rutgers. It's like you can't get mad at these guys when they're going to a better.
Yeah, no, you really can't. And I don't. But I'm just going to look up here where they currently have Duff ranked. But he's kind of flown up the board. Next year will be tough, though, being completely honest, because you've got Ryan Williams, you got Jeremiah Smith potentially. Which I just want to let you. They also have T.J. Moore from Clemson up there. They got Nick Marsh from Michigan State. He is good, but I think it's a 2-horse race, right? I think it's Jeremiah Smith, Ryan Williams. I think those are your premier guys. If you told me it's going to be, we'll see how it goes because we see guys fall all the time, but potentially you could be talking about 2 receivers going in the top 5. Actually, to go a step further, if they live to what they're supposed to be, which they have for most part, there could be a world where we have receivers go 1 and 2.
Well, this season specifically for Ryan Williams, because after last year, other than the Georgia game, he didn't really live up to what you expected.
No, but
apparently that Miami freshman receiver is like the next big thing too, right?
Could be. Yeah, I haven't watched enough Miami games because I can't stand Carson Beck. Being admit, I don't like the guy. Please listen to our podcast, but he reminds me of one of the bugs from Men in Black. Anyway, but yeah, I haven't really. I'm going to be honest. I've kind of avoided. I watch the highlights, obviously, like most do. Like Steve watches Michigan games. I don't only watch, but I tend to follow Rutgers more than others.
I definitely watch the game
in that regard.
But if Michigan is on, I'm watching Michigan.
No, you support your schools, man. Like I said, I Rutgers, not the greatest school to watch, admittedly, but you know what? They're my home school.
Yeah.
And I support local, but it's been cool. Like I said, KJ Duff reminds me a lot of Kenny Britt. And, I think he's I think he's better than Kenny Britt. And Kenny Britt was, let's not forget, 1st-round pick. Yeah. That team was filthy. They got to 7th overall in the country. Kenny Britt's probably the best receiver to come out of Rutgers NFL-wise. I know people, they'll make the argument that Leonte Carew or Mohamed Sanu, but those guys, I think KJ Duff is special. And if Rutgers can keep him, and next year they'll have Surace as the quarterback, I think that KJ Duff, we could be having a conversation next year where obviously you're going to have your Ryan Williams or your Jeremiah Smiths, right? That next tier, I think we could be talking next year in a conversation. We got a Rutgers guy we're talking about potentially as a top 20 pick. It's early, very early, but fun. I think that we potentially could be talking about a guy being a top 20 pick out of Rutgers, which is always, to me, that's exciting. We don't get guys get drafted, in the 1st round very often. We used to back in the day when we had McCourty and Anthony, Anthony Davis, that was cool. But now it's been a barren land, but all credit to Shiano for getting them, and finding them as a gem. I mean, both strong and and Duff were 3-star recruits. They weren't heavily recruited guys in that regard. So
Duff's gonna look at that defense and be like, "I'm out of here."
yeah, you know what? To be fair, the class that's coming in next year, I think, is actually pretty decent. But they're freshmen. You can't.
Yeah.
It's hard. And Rutgers, to be fair, all things considered, with that, they don't get picked clean very often when it comes to the recruiting cycle. A lot of the guys that transfer out aren't transferring out for better opportunity. They're transferring because they couldn't start at Rutgers. Schiano definitely had a down year this year in terms of defense, but the offense does, for the most part, look like a Big Ten offense for once.
Yeah.
If you took that Rutgers offense that we have this year and, like, let's say Iowa's defense last year, might be talking about a top 10 team.
Yeah.
But no, I think this is a exciting year for the draft. If you need a receiver, I think the quarterbacks, it's probably a 2-horse race at quarterback. You're seeing a lot of more going back. I think that a lot of people, Jets fans wise, that pay attention are praying that Ty Simpson comes out.
Especially if you get the 3rd pick.
Yeah, that's the thing is, and I was having this conversation today with Kevin, my friend. Kevin. I do think that Mendoza's going first overall. I do not think the Jets are going to have the first overall pick. But the beauty of it is we might be having a game to for the first overall. That game against New Orleans, if both teams have one win, it's going to be reminiscent of when the Jets beat the Lions and lost out on.
Yeah.
Trevor Lawrence. Not that I think Trevor Lawrence is a world beater, and he probably would have been just like Zach Wilson if he came here. But, I think that this year in terms of quarterback, and we didn't want to get into quarterback today, but Mendoza is probably the guy that's going to guide the ship for most teams this year. You'll get teams maybe that bow out and wait till next year. And, to potentially get a run at Sayin. If you're a believer in Arch Manning, he's probably going to be a guy next year. I'm not personally at this point.
Yeah.
Sellers, I think, probably goes back, comes out next year. I don't think he's a first-round pick, but Sayin's going to be the golden goose, so to speak. I mean, he's going to get that Trevor Lawrence love, especially if he wins a national title this year.
That could almost force like a guy like Ty Simpson to kind of enter the draft, though, because of those names that.
So yeah, I think that if you, like I said, we listen to the McShay podcast. McShay thinks it's best for Ty Simpson to go back, simply because even if he wins the Heisman this year, let's say he wins a national title.
He's always a believer.
He is. He's a big believer. I think his big thing is that he's got 1 year of film. You're going to draft a guy potentially with it'll be at that point, if he wins a national title, 14 games to his name. I'm going to be honest with you. I've seen enough from Ty Simpson to say I would give it a shot. As a Jet fan, I would say what I've seen from him, I do like Mendoza. I've been on Mendoza since week, that.
Yeah.
Maybe not as the Jet quarterback, but I think Mendoza is the right quarterback in the system. But I think Ty Simpson's a little more adaptable. You don't have Mendoza is a true. I don't care what anybody says. Everyone says he's more mobile than you think. No, he's not. He's not. He's Jared Goff, and Jared Goff is a good quarterback. You're going to put him behind a line, let him distribute the ball, and he's not going to go out there and get you, 40 yards, 50 yards if he has to in a game on 10 rushes.
Yeah.
I think Ty Simpson can be that guy.
Yeah.
I think Ty Simpson, and a lot of people, like you say, he's a throwback quarterback. I think he's got a little more boogie to his game. I can see boogie, exactly. I think that if I was to compare him in terms of athleticism, I think he's a lot like Baker. I'm not saying he is Baker Mayfield. I think that he has that kind of athleticism where it's sneaky. Baker Mayfield out of nowhere rip off a 20-yard run. You're like, where the hell did that come from? I think Ty Simpson's that guy. Mendoza is not. And then obviously, if Moore comes out, if Moore comes out, he's going to be the athletic jewel of this draft. I mean, the guy can run, he can pass, he can do everything.
He needs another year, though.
I think so. I think that, and he has no reason to come out, right? Like, I think that if he went, and I think the year he's had this year, while you said there are some things that you've left open, there are some things I'm sure you could find that you're like, yeah, that guy's an NFL quarterback. And I think you could find more of those things with him than you could with, let's say, an Arch. So I think that he competes favorably against the guys next year too. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I think that a lot of guys might, like Mendoza might rush out this year, and even Simpson, because athletically they may not match up with Sayin. They may not match up well with Moore. They may not match up well with Arch athletically. So they're going to lose draft stock because of their athleticism. I think that Moore probably goes back, puts another year like he did this year on tape. Maybe they go further. Maybe, I mean, the year's still, they're not out of it. Like, they can go out and win a national title, but I think Moore, if you told me he's the second quarterback next year behind Sayin, or if he's the first because Sayin went back, I think he's capable of that. Yeah. I don't think there's any positive of Mendoza going back to school.
Yeah.
I don't think there's
the only thing, like, to go against like what Todd McShay typically says is like that another year of tape is like this year, like we saw what the quarterback class was. It was Cam Ward, it was Jackson Dart, and then it kind of ended there. There was two quarterbacks, and I think like like if Drew Aller comes out, he might have been a first round pick.
I mean, to prime examples, Cade Klubnik. If he came out last year, he was a first round pick.
Nussmeier would have been
Aller,
drafted higher,
yep.
probably.
I think Nussmeier probably Aller did the most damage to himself. Like, I don't know if Aller gets drafted. Yeah. Just being, somebody might argue with me and say, "Oh, that's not." Penn State fans might be like, "No, no." I don't know if he gets drafted. Mm-hmm. He's not athletic. He's not a great thrower of the football. He never developed. It's tough. Last year he had a really strong year. Should have cashed in last year. There's argument to be made that he would have went right behind Cam or competed with Cam for that first, that first QB spot. Klubnik, and you may not love that I'm going to say this, but Klubnik goes before Dart last year. I'm telling you, he goes before Dart last year. I'm not saying Dart's not a first-round pick.
Against that.
I'm not saying that Dart's not a first-round pick, but if you looked at it last year, let's just move Nussmeier, we'll move Aller and Klubnik into that draft class last year. I still think Ward probably finds a way to go first. I do think that. I think that he does. That year he had last year was exceptional. I think you probably look at Aller too. I think then you're looking at Klubnik, Dart, Nussmeier. But that's the thing. Like, I understand what McShay says. I don't agree with everything he says, but I do think that he's better than Kiper.
Oh, yeah.
I think that going back can cost you. I mean, look what it did to Matt Leinart. Matt Leinart was a shoo-in for the first overall pick, went back, and the next thing you know, he's getting drafted 13th to the Cardinals or whatever it was. You know what I mean? Like, it's not always the answer. And I think for a guy like Mendoza, this is the year. He's not going first overall next year if he stays. I can tell you that right now. It's not going to happen because someone's going to fall. Like, you have the more athletic guys, they've got another year underneath him. Yeah. Mendoza has to come out this year because I think he's the first overall pick if he does.
Yeah, this is the perfect season for him.
Yep. Like, and Simpson, to throw Simpson into the loop, if he's coming out against those guys next year, we'll say that Moore goes back and he's competing more. Arch Manning, Sayin, we'll throw Sellers in there. I know I'm missing a handful here, and that's okay. Is he going to be as high as a third overall pick next year? Probably not. Yeah. Even if he wins the Heisman this year, I don't see him. He'll gain more seasoning. I don't see him having a better impact next year. I think that him and Mendoza should come out.
Well, I texted you week 1, and I said, I know Alabama lost, but Ty Simpson looks like a good quarterback.
Yes, and, you did. And a lot of the Alabama fans wanted Keelan Russell over him. They said he wasn't good.
I've always thought that, like, he's just like the traditional football player that just finds ways to win, makes limited mistakes, and that's what he's been the entire season. Like, look at his stats. Like, I know stats don't always tell a story, but limited interception.
They paint a really good picture of his, though.
Yeah, he's been very good this year. I don't know if, like, Ty Simpson's not the Drew Aller, like, Cade Klubnik type scenario. Like, he might not be the third overall pick next season, but I don't think he would ever play himself out of that first round slot because he just, he's going to do the same thing next season. He's going to come in, he's going to keep Alabama in games. He's probably going to be in a playoff position, and he's going to have limited interceptions, and he's going to throw for 250 to 300 yards a game.
Yeah, my thing with it is if he goes back, and again, we're saying what ifs, right? And I hate what ifs, but it is true. And let's just say Sayin says, you know what? I've done it all. I'm coming out.
Yeah.
He's not going over Sayin. I think that's the big thing. I don't think he's going over Moore. I don't think he'd go over Moore this year. While I like Simpson more than Moore, I've really come around to it. I don't think he gets drafted over Moore, but I also think Moore goes back. I think this year is the perfect year because, and I not to toot my own, like, I think he ends up with a team like the Jets. They will do everything to build around him. And also, to be fair, we, as a Jet fan, I like to shit on the Jets myself. And I know we're doing a college podcast, but let's just talk about the Jets for a minute. They are a perfect spot for a young quarterback because they have so much to invest in that quarterback. I think that in terms of draft position, I'd rather be with the Jets than I would be New Orleans right now.
Well, Mike,
just being honest.
Let's look at the trade deadline for the Jets. They didn't touch the offense.
They did not.
They have a strong offensive line, the Jets. They still have a running back in Breece Hall who can rush for 100 yards in a game. And Garrett Wilson, who I think both you and I agree is a top 10 receiver in the game. Mason Taylor, I think he's still going to be a good tight end.
I think he's going to be good, but I think that, like I told you earlier, my hot take is Sadiq from Oregon. Keep an eye on him at the back of the first round with the Jets. They run 12 personnel, but I think that the Jets' offense could be strong. I think, to be fair, with Justin Fields, we have not seen what this offense can be. And Tyrod Taylor, we have not, we truly don't know what this offense is capable of. Yeah. And I do like what they did at the deadline. They added the first round picks, and a lot of people are upset that Sauce went and Quinnen Williams went. And I have my own take on that. Yeah, that's the fandom talking. From a realist perspective, Quinnen Williams has given everything to this franchise. They've given him nothing in return. Sure, they paid him, but they've given him nothing in return. The guy deserves a chance to go out and compete. And you got a first and a second round pick for him. That's not a slouch of a, like, everybody, like, a first and a second for a defensive tackle that's due for an extension. That's pretty good. You know, I understand that he's a top 10 tackle, and I'm going to miss him in that regard, but this team was going nowhere. Sauce Gardner, 2 first round picks for a corner who the Jets obviously agree or disagree. The Jets obviously came to a point where they felt that a corner is not winning them games. He's not losing them games, but he's not winning them games. So it made sense. You get 2 first round picks for anybody, you got to make the move. Yeah. That's the same deal Micah Parsons got. You know what I mean? Like, you got to make the move 2 first. I don't care. There's very few players in the NFL that I wouldn't move for 2 first round picks. Absolutely. And I know picks don't hit, but I also like what the Jets did. Mechie. I'm not saying he's an all pro or anything like that, but we don't know what John Mechie is. You know, he hasn't gotten an opportunity. He can't, once the cancer thing, I think it sapped up a lot of his. Mechie was kind of a burner, kind of took away his speed. But we don't know. He hasn't had a fair shake. Maybe you get Mechie out there over the next 9 weeks or whatever it is. Mechie goes out, shows you something. Mitchell, another guy. A lot of Colts fans are upset because they felt that he could be something. He had that stupid mistake of fumbling in the end zone, which, you know, but Glenn to be fair, when
him for that.
Oh, Glenn, yes, he would. But I don't think he ever makes that mistake again. Just being honest. You make that mistake once, you never do it again, I think. But a guy like him, you know, he's not far removed from college. You know, he was a burner in college. He's a big, I didn't realize how big he was. 6'2", like 210, 220, and he runs like a 4'3". I mean, you know, but he's had glimpses. It's actually funny. I meant to send this to you earlier. I was reading something about his stats with Anthony Richardson versus without Anthony Richardson. And he's had Anthony Richardson for the majority of his career outside of this, you know, for the most part. Yeah. And his stats without him are incredible. Like, he looks like a budding receiver in the NFL. So I think that the Jets, if they could turn something there, might have something special. And Mazi Smith, I know you know more about him than I do. He's a throwback at defensive tackle. I don't know how he fits the Jets. That's the only one that I'm kind of like, why did we do this? But again, that wasn't the focal point of the trade. The trade was the picks. But I did like getting Mechie for a guy who wasn't playing. I liked getting A.D. Mitchell back after getting 2 first-round picks. And Mazi Smith, I mean, I don't know. I don't know what you do with him, to be honest with you. But the Jets are primed to make some noise with some prospects.
I think you'll see if Aaron Glenn can truly get the most out of his players with some of these guys. You talk about Mitchell, but like Mazi Smith, like you're talking about him, like I don't think his head has 100% been into the football thing since he's gotten into the NFL. And, you know, he was a first-round pick because people like his size and, you know, some of the other skill sets that he brings to the table. But
and to be fair, I don't know if the Cowboys utilized him correctly. I mean, he's a true run-stuffing nose tackle, and I know that the Cowboys like to get some pass rush out of their defensive tackles. So maybe he was misrepresented.
Well, that was
he's no Mason Graham. No, I mean, if they thought that's what they're getting out of a 340-pound guy, they're crazy.
But he paved the way for Mason Graham. That's Michigan's defensive line, and they still do it to this day. And they've had 3 great defensive coordinators. They've had Mike McDonald, is it? The Seahawks coach. They had, who's the Chargers defensive coordinator? Why am I drawing a blank on his name? This is going to bother me. But they had him.
You're the Michigan guy. You have no excuse.
Yeah, it's terrible that I'm forgetting his name because he was the guy who won the national championship for them. And he's going to be a head coaching candidate eventually.
I'll tell you right now. I'm going to help you out because I feel bad.
Yeah, help me out.
Jesse Minter.
Yeah, Jesse Minter. But I mean, like with him, like Mazzy, like the thing with him was like Michigan has always had like 7, 8, 9 defensive linemen that could probably start on 95% of teams in the nation, and they rotate guys out. And you're talking about him being a run stuffer, like that's what he is. And they had the ability on 3rd down to take him out of the game at Michigan. I don't know if that was always the case with the Dallas Cowboys. It's like they wanted him to be a little more than that. And
I mean, listen, I think that they probably deployed him as a pass rush. I think Quinnen Williams fits that Cowboys defense very well.
Yeah.
I think that Mazi Smith was a run stuffer in college. I think the Jets are going to use him as a run stuffer. And I think that's also part of Quinnen Williams' frustrations this year is that he just he eats up double teams every year. But this year he wasn't used in a pass rushing role. And I know that there was after reports came out, there was some vocalization of not being happy with his role and what he was doing. I think that a guy like Mazi Smith, let's treat him like he is a rookie. Let's remember what he did at Michigan. Let's try and deploy him like that for the Jets. You've got nothing to lose. That's the best part of it. He was a throw-in. That wasn't part like a focal point of the trade. I mean, this man was a throw-in. If the Jets didn't get him, I'd be hard pressed to believe that the Jets are like, we're not making this trade unless we get Mozzie Smith. But I think that they're set
He
up
was a first
for.
round pick though, so
He was, and I think that was the biggest thing. If you look back, all the guys they took back were first or second round picks. I mean, I think there is what they were looking to do is they're trying to assemble a young team. It's obvious that what their receiver room they want it to look like, and I think that if you add a quarterback, I know a lot of people say wait till next year. I don't want to wait. I want them to get somebody in this year. I want them to build around this guy. Next year, you've got 3 first round picks. You can make a run at a guy at Ryan Williams. You can make a run at a guy like Jeremiah Smith.
yeah.
You can literally, that rookie quarterback, there's going to be struggles next year. Well, guess what? At the end of next year, we could be talking about a receiver room with Garrett Wilson and Jeremiah Smith, a receiver room with Garrett Wilson and Ryan Williams. You could be talking about a receiver room where you got all 3. Just being completely honest with you, the Jets have 3 first round picks. You realistically could be looking at a receiver room. It may not be likely, but it could be.
Just don't keep a guy like Tyrod Taylor. It doesn't hurt. Like
100%.
Ty Simpson sits the bench most of the season, and you don't get him beat up with a team that's probably going to win like 4 or 5 games that year. But that's fine. That's perfectly fine. You know, it gives this young roster a chance to get some experience. It's going to give them reps that they may have not. You know, some of these young guys they brought in, maybe they didn't see elsewhere. You know, so I think the Jets are in a good position for like 2-3 years from now. You know,
Yep.
I don't think you expect.
I think next year you find them. I think they'll be in a similar position to the Giants are this year, where you've got what we think is the guy. I don't know any Giants fan that doesn't think Dart's the guy.
Oh yeah.
I think that the Giants. I would have really liked to see what Dart could have done with Neighbors, and that's really just it's disappointing and it's upsetting for what happened. Yep, Escadaboo's another one. I would have liked to see what they can do, but the important thing is you're now in the position where I think the Jets could be next year. Is that you realistically could be looking at a room where you're adding a guy like a Tyson, a Tate. You know, and if let's say you don't want to do that in the second round, you could, maybe Boston falls. You know what I mean? Like you could be talking about a receiver room where Dart has options, and I think that Wendell Robinson. Let's just use Neighbors. Let's just say you guys take Tate, and you got a guy like Slayton or Robinson. That's a formidable receiver room. Like you could be talking, and Theo Johnson, who I didn't believe in, seems to be a guy at tight end. I think that. Yeah, I think that the Giants right now are where the Jets will be next year. Yeah. I do. Well, maybe the quarterback isn't as established at that point yet as Dart is. Dart seems a little more polished. I would like to see more throws downfield. But Dart is a winner. I don't know what else to say. He's going to go out and he's not going to. He's he's cost a game or two. But you know what? Does it really matter wins and losses if you're a Giants fan right now? It doesn't. You want to see development, and I think you are seeing that. So. Yeah. And I think next year is going to be even more exciting as a Giant fan because I do think you're going to get a legitimate number 2 receiver with number 1 traits. Like, I don't know what, like, that's insane to think about.
Yeah.
You could have a T. Higgins, Jamar Chase situation next year.
I don't love 2 out of 3 drafts picking a receiver top 10, but you have to do it as the Giants because you just don't have anyone to put on the opposite side of Neighbors. It's tough for me because Caleb Downs is going to be available, and that's just like an unreal scene.
I understand that. But I completely understand that. But I'll tell you right now, if you could have a receiver room that's comparable to the Bengals, which I think you guys are 1 pick away from that, you know what I mean? You would sign up for that over Caleb Downs. Oh, yeah. I can tell you that right now. But Caleb Downs is prolific. I think he's going to be, he's going to be the next guy at safety. I was going to say I was about to say Sean Taylor, Ed Reed. I didn't want to go there because I told you in the past I don't like expectations on guys. They're kids, right? And I hate lumping those expectations. But he's special.
He's smart and a great player on the field.
And he takes a position that's not a premium position on the field, and he makes it a game-changing position. And that's why I think that, me and you have argued in the past, I think, about the safety position in terms of where you draft him. Caleb Downs has proven that he's probably worthy. Yeah. Arguing, you could probably make an argument where he should be the number 1 pick. He took a position that's not a game-changing position and made it a game-changing position. Like, he's that gifted. But he's not, obviously he's not going to go first overall. Yeah. But he's going to go top 5.
Every once in a while it happens. You take a safety. It's like the running back position. Every once in a while you take a running back in the top 10.
Well, listen, the Jets did it with Jamal Adams. They took him number 6 overall. Yeah. Sean Taylor, I think, was 5th overall.
It happens. Yeah, every once in a while.
He warrants it.
Yeah. Let's close it out. We'll save picks for next week. It's not that great of a week anyways, right?
No, let's make them.
Want to make them? All
right, I'll run through them quick.
All right, cool.
All right, we'll do it real quick. We're going to pick 4 games this week. It is not a very interesting week, but they do have some implication on the college football playoff.
Yeah.
The big one this week, BYU Texas Tech. Might try and convince Steve to do a little live stream for that one. I think it'd be a cool one. BYU Texas Tech. Texas Tech is favored 10.5. We're not going to pick points. That's the other podcast. You want to go listen to that?
Yeah.
We're going to pick straight pick'ems. Who do you got? BYU Texas Tech.
I think this is where BYU finally stumbles. Texas Tech's been very strong, other than the one loss they have this year, which was like a hiccup game. And I think every team in Texas Tech's position, where they're in like waters where they haven't been in the past few years or in a while, for Texas Tech's, like a hiccup game is going to happen every once in a while. But I think they've proven to us that they should be in the top 25 this year. The future is very bright for them. They're going to be probably a top 10 team again next year. They could make the playoff this year. BYU's had a lot of close games with teams that probably shouldn't have been that close to them, and they've survived. So props to them. They have a freshman quarterback. He's been impressive. But I think this is the week. BYU's on the road too, right?
Yeah, Texas Tech is home.
Yeah, that's just a tough environment too. I think Texas Tech gets through this.
Yep. I'm not going to pick against it. I think it's Texas Tech. I think BYU loses because their quarterback wears number 47. Moving on. So we got Oregon, Iowa. Obviously, Oregon's favored. You know what? I'm going to go against the grain here. I think Iowa's defense is strong enough to put up a fight. Kev's going to kill me on this one. I'm going to take Iowa this game just because I like an upset. And out of all the games we're talking about here, it's the only one that seems feasible for an upset for me. I think Iowa's defense is that strong. My concern is going to be the offense. It does look better. And, Moore has been playing a little rough, as we talked about earlier. He's kind of stumbling a little bit. It hasn't cost them yet. Well, fully hasn't cost them yet. But I think this is the week it probably it catches up to him. I'm going to take Iowa this week.
Yeah, I like that pick. I was actually, when I was looking at it, I was leaning towards that as well. I don't love Iowa's quarterback. I mean, 4 touchdowns, 4 interceptions on the season. I guess he's kept the interceptions down, but it's just not a stat line you want to see from your guy. He did look good against your Rutgers team when he played them.
Everybody looks good against Rutgers.
Yeah, but like Iowa, like
Oregon put up 115 points or something. Yeah, it's like.
I mean, Iowa at home, they're going to keep it close. They always have a good defense. The other thing is, like, you give a team like this a little like glimpse of hope, a chance to make the college football playoff, especially with a seasoned coach that they have in Ferenz. I think they can do it. I like that pick. I think that's the upset watch of the week right there is Iowa.
Yeah, I think it's the only viable upset. And just to be clear, I mean, Vegas, if you're a betting person, Oregon's only favored by 6.5, and the over-under for that game is 42.5. Oregon's a high-flying offense. I think Iowa can make this a dogfight, and we'll see what Oregon's defense can do. Iowa's defense, is going to show up to play. So if I was going to pick an upset, that's it. That's the one I'm going to pick. We could be very wrong about that next week, and they lose by 50. But if there was an upset this week in the games, this is the one.
Also,
so that's what I'm going with.
I want to throw out there, at the time, we were like, oh my God, a huge win for Oregon in the whiteout game. But at this point, it's not looking like that big of a win anymore. So
no, not anymore.
Like, Oregon really needs this too. So they're definitely going to come prepared to play. And they're a very well-coached team, but I don't know, the hunch, sometimes you got to go with your gut. It says Iowa here.
Okay, so let's go to Texas A&M, Missouri. Texas A&M favored by 7. I'll give you the total points, 48.5. Missouri doesn't have their quarterback. Bo's out, obviously. Feel bad for him. He was kind of making a name for himself. I don't see the Texas A&M train ending anytime soon, so I don't even think there's much to say here. I know they say 7. I'd be shocked if Texas A&M doesn't blow this one out.
It's going to be within a touchdown. I mean, Missouri's still in the top 25, but that's based on what Bo did with them.
Yep.
Yeah, it sucks because Missouri actually has a really, really good defense this year.
Yep. And I think Bro Pavula gave him something they didn't have. I think, and his story was really good.
Yeah.
Transfer out of Penn State might have been a mistake by Penn State to let him go. I think if he was there, the game's probably more compelling. I don't see it being that compelling right now. I think that, I think Texas A&M puts it on him really early, real quick, and that game's a blowout. Our last one, and we'll close it out. Northwestern, USC. USC's favored by 14.5. Northwestern this year, promising team. They've played a lot better than I think people expected. They're usually doormats. This year they have put up some fight. I don't see USC losing this game. It might stay close in the first half. I think that Lincoln Riley shows up to play. I think he knows what's at stake. They still have an outside chance to make the playoff. Yeah. I think that USC probably pulls this one out by pulling away in the second half.
Yeah, That was an interesting one because a lot of the top 25 rankings, not to go back to my guys from Michigan, but when the AP top 25 came out, Michigan was in front of USC. But it looks like, the college football committee, they're saying USC's, because they beat Michigan, should be in front of them, which by mathematical terms, that makes sense. So yeah, they have a really strong chance at the college football playoff. I don't know who else they play the rest of the year, but this is a game you just have to win if you want to give yourself a chance. You can't have slip ups
Yep.
against Northwestern. It officially knocks them out if they lose this one. Mike, one
Yep.
more. We don't have to say who's going to win or lose, but Georgia's on the road against Mississippi State this year, and Mississippi State kept the Tennessee and the Texas game close. So they're no slouch of a game. Could that be another one, like upset watch type game?
No.
No, yeah.
No, I think Georgia's a well-oiled machine at this point. Georgia, the only thing stopping them is Georgia Tech at this point.
Sorry, Brendan Walker. Um,
Sorry,
not
buddy.
gonna happen. All right, let's close it out. Next week we'll talk freshman quarterbacks because I'm
Yes.
excited about Julian Lewis starting for, or Juju Lewis as they call him,
Yep.
starting for Colorado. I do want to throw one thing out there. I don't know if we'll get the NFL podcast out there. It really depends on John's schedule this week. But this morning, we're recording on Thursday. We got like really unfortunate news this morning of Marshawn Kneeland. And I want to throw out there, not to get heavy here, but I mean, like, this is a guy who scored a touchdown on Monday Night Football, and then just in a matter of a few days, I think he was in a porta potty. They found him.
Yeah, I think there was some, from what I saw, there was a police chase or something
Yeah,
like that. I think there was more to it, but a young life lost for no
yeah,
reason.
a young life.
You know,
Just, you got to throw it out there. Like, if you ever feel alone or if you ever feel help, I know it's a tough thing to do sometimes, but get the help that you need. There's a lot of,
there's always somebody out there to talk to you. There's mistakes we make in life. This is one of them you can't come back from. And,
yeah,
just think about the others around you that have to clean up the mistake. I think that, I think that well said. If you need help, don't be afraid to take it. There's nothing about being man enough.
yeah,
Just go out there, speak to somebody, tell somebody. And on the flip side of it, you know what? I don't do it enough, and I'm sure most people don't, but you don't know what somebody else is going through
yeah.
on any given day. When you walk past somebody on the street, be nice.
Yeah.
You know what? Just be nice. That's all.
Well, it's
So
also
that's all I got to say.
like the number one thing people say when someone passes away is check in on your loved ones. And I think we read that and we're like, they're just throwing that in there because someone passed away. But start doing it today. Like, check in on those people that are close to you. Reach out to them, see how they're feeling. Because there's always the age old story of the person who was walking to the bridge back in the day. I think it's a true story even, and they were going to jump off the bridge, but because one person stopped them and said hello to them and was nice to them on the way to the bridge, they decided not to do it. So, you could really change someone's life if you just check in on them and see how they're doing. Something so small, but yeah, we'll close it out. Not the greatest college football slate coming up, but I felt like that was a really strong episode. I'm really excited to continue
Yeah.
to do this throughout the season. We almost should have done it earlier. I wish we did, just because I feel like it was very smooth. Keep listening, subscribe, continue to tune in.
Tell us which platform you like better. Do you like our NFL stuff better? Do you like me and Steve's college hangout? Either
Competition.
one. Absolutely. You know what? You could like them both, like them either one. Please keep listening, and you know what? Maybe we can start asking some people some questions here. So
Well said.
follow our soon to be game live streams too. We're gonna do that.
Yeah.
We're gonna live stream some before the end of the season. Definitely college football playoff. We're gonna live stream some games, and hopefully we can get a little bit of a couple people in a room, and you can see us being idiots. It'll be fun. So thank you everybody that listens, and this is really fun. Actually, this was really enjoyable. I think we should
Continue.
close it out here and continue to do it.
Yeah. Good stuff, Mike. We'll see you guys next week, and have fun watching college football this weekend. We'll definitely return and talk about it some more next week. See you guys.
Awesome. Thank you, guys.